Kevin, thank you so much for coming to this interview. I'm super excited to have you here over the next 5 minutes. I know you're someone who's had a very unique educational experience, especially in private schools and college in the US. Why don't you share a little bit about us in regards to your own educational journey?
Sure. I'm from Newmarket. It's like about half an hour north of Toronto. I was actually at Pickering College for pretty much all of my K to 12 education, with 2 years of exceptions. First, in seventh grade, I made the jump to go to UTS downtown. And I stayed there for about a year before going back to Pickering College for grade 8 and high school. And then for grade 12, I actually studied abroad in Switzerland at NJC, Neuchatel Junior College, which was also just like an amazing time. So yeah, I've been jumping around a lot.
And what's some of the reason for the jumps? I know you went to Pickering College, then to UTS, and then back to Pickering College. What caused you to go, away from Pickering and then back to Pickering? Was there a deciding factor on that decision?
Yeah, my parents signed me up for Prepskills to study for the SSAT, and that really was basically what got me into UTS. I think at that point, I was just looking for I guess, new experience or at a new school. And ultimately, the reason why I ended up going back to Pickering College was more like logistic wise. I had to commute downtown so I went down during the week and then went back home on the weekends. I didn't really get to see my dad and my sister very often. And so it was just better for me to go back to PC so I could just be with family and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, really cool. And it's really cool to hear about, your experience with Prepskills, you doing your prep with them. Coming from an outside perspective, you're a student of Prepskills. It's different hearing, of course, from Joanna or a parent. What was your experience like with Prepskills and how did they tee you up and prepare you for your further education?
Yeah, it was pretty fun actually. So I think the first time when I was studying for the SSAT, it was like public classes that were with multiple other students. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact how many I actually went to or exactly what happened. But I think we did both SSAT prep and then we also did like interview prep. And I remember the instructors were always very helpful and friendly. I mean, I learned a lot. I got into UTS, so I mean, it worked out. And sort of same thing when studying for the SAT. I had just one private tutor. And she was, again, really great. Very, like, the whole process is very, very personalized based on like where your current skills are, and definitely managed to score higher because of the extra practice and help I got.
That's amazing. This is a funny question. And, I went to a prep skills workshop to prep for my SAT back when I was 13. It's about 7 years ago as well. Did you get one of these funky little stress balls?
Yes, I actually remember that. I vaguely remember that.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, look, I just want to do a quick little spotlight interview here, ask you a couple of questions. I'm glad to hear you had an amazing experience with prep skills and preparing yourself for further education. You're a shining, bright young man doing so many amazing things in the future, and we're all cheering you on and looking forward to what you continue to do. Any parting words you want to share with the audience if they're thinking about, bringing their kid to prep skills or getting involved in some SAT prep courses?
Um, so on the sort of testing side, I would probably definitely recommend doing these classes. I think, any extra like help or study that you can do will really, really improve your scores on these tests and therefore your chances of getting into these schools. The main piece of like parting advice I actually want to give students when it comes to like selecting where they want to go, whether that's like a secondary school or even eventually college, is go with your gut feeling. Only you, the student, knows like who you are and the vibe of the school and whether or not you'll fit with it. So definitely just trust yourself when deciding where to go, and yeah.
And you might just end up at your dream school like you did at UCLA.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man. And I'm glad you're sharing that advice with everyone. There is one question actually from Joyce who says, what grade were you in when you first sat for your SAT?
I think I took it for the first time in grade 10. I took it the first time in grade 10. I think I took it again in grade 11, and then I took it 3 times. So once every year, and then again, it's sort of a lot of schools like super score, so it was also good for that too. Yeah.
One more question here. How did you know it was the right school for you? Or how did you know what school was the right fit?
I'll talk about like college, right? So I was actually my final pick came down to UCLA versus USC, which are two big rivals here in LA. And it's a really difficult thing to describe. I was accepted to UCLA for computer science and USC for business administration. But when I ended up visiting both schools, there was just some like gut feeling that like UCLA was just the place for me in terms of like the people that were there, the location, and what I really wanted to end up doing. So yeah, I just go visit the schools. You'll always feel it's a real gut feeling thing.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. Guys, this is Kevin. Kevin's someone who worked with Prepskills, got into his dream school. Awesome little spotlight interview. Kev, thanks so much for sharing some wisdom and time with us today, and we'll continue to watch along your journey.
Thanks for having me.